I am unendorsing everything that I have ever done and said and published. For simplicity's sake, I mean that this is like everything that's 2020 and earlier. So everything before 2021. This video is primarily meant to be a bit of like a historical thing, an archive, like for people who are coming back and looking at this after the fact. That will become clearer, but just a heads up, you're watching this. So what is not unendorsement, or what is it and what is it not? It's not. I'm not recanting or revoking or retracting things that I've said or done. That's not the point of this. The point of this is to let everyone know that I've changed my mind on all of my previous things. I've changed my mind from I think that this is true to more like I haven't made up my mind yet. It's not to say that things are false, it's just that they're not stuff that I'm sure I believe in or endorse anymore. So my goals for this is essentially to create a line in the sand, to say everything prior to 2021 is, you can't take for granted that I believe these things anymore. You can't take what I've said and treat it as though that applies to Max in 2021 and onwards. It's meant to avoid miscommunication about the things that I've previously said and done, and it's also meant to sort of like, I think that this is an important thing and an important moment because it's the moment that I'm choosing to be a philosopher and do that seriously. That's not to say like professionally, like I'm still an amateur, but seriously. And it's because it's an important moment, I want to share that. I don't want it to be like something that I do in silence, which I can't do as a philosopher anyway. Like, I need to be public about my ideas and expose them to criticisms and offer criticisms and things like that. So it makes sense for this to be public too. Other reasons for why I'm doing this. So I've changed my mind on basically everything, I guess, on a lot of things, the vast majority. And what I mean by that is that when I think about ideas that I used to have, I usually find problems with them. Not always like fatal problems, they might just be small errors that I can fix quickly, but that's not always the case. And so it's not safe for me to use them as a basis anymore. It's not safe for me to take for granted the things that I used to. And that means that it's not safe for anyone else to take for granted that I still believe the things I used to believe. The other sort of things on this point, so doing it this way means that I'm doing a whitelist of ideas as opposed to a blacklist. Like, I will selectively endorse things again from the past. That's much easier because for a blacklist I would have to do that all the time, and it would mean that there would be a long period between reevaluating some ideas. And I don't want to leave the impression that for like years that I still endorse something that I don't. The other thing is that it's ad hoc, so I can just do it as I go along. One of the ways that you can think about what I do and don't endorse from this point on is that if I'm publicly working on something, if I'm contributing or writing or whatever else, if I'm publicly working on something that exists prior to 2021, then I'm re-endorsing it by my involvement. I think that's the right way to do it, and that way, you know, it like these are unambiguous things, I think, for the most part. This is predominantly, like, it's not just about my past ideas. The other thing that this is about is my future ideas. Like, I want my future ideas to not be bound by mistakes that I've made in the past. That doesn't mean that I'm trying to escape mistakes from the past. It doesn't mean that I'm refusing to answer criticisms or that I don't think that's important or anything like that. Like, I made those mistakes and I need to understand why they were mistakes and how not to make them again. And that means that I need to, I need to be honest with all of that, and I can't do that if I like throw them away entirely or act like they didn't happen or like I don't need to answer those criticisms. I still do. That's still, like, error correction still matters. So I guess, yeah, unendorsement does not mean that I'm trying to shun responsibility. The other thing is that it's I'm more careful about my ideas now, and it's also a commitment to you and the world that I'm going to take ideas more seriously, and that if I say something from this point on or I endorse something, then that is something I've considered more and that has passed more rigorous thinking methods and the criticism from more rigorous thinking methods. So I think that it is more important, the things that I endorse from this point on compared to prior to 2021. Some miscellaneous stuff. So how can I change my mind about so much at once? The answer to that lies in thinking methods. I have vastly improved my ability to think over the past 6 months. And that's going to be an ongoing journey. It is not something that ever finishes. There's always room for improvement there. However, I didn't realize how bad I was at thinking before. I think we live in a society where when you reach adulthood, there's sort of a lot of expectation that you're in large part done with those sort of things to learn, and I think that's a really bad way to look at it. No one's ever done, and you can't predict progress in this regard. So it's not that, age is not a good proxy for figuring out whether someone is better or worse at thinking or things like that. Education is not a good proxy. In fact, it's a very unreliable proxy. And we know this without controversy, because there are educated people who have serious disagreements about things, and that means that there must be some either irrationality or unresolved disagreement or something else going wrong to prevent them reaching agreement. So with my past ideas, I find problems with them, and I don't know how to quickly answer them. A lot of the time. Some problems I know how to quickly answer. But that indicates that things are very different. And the reason that I can see problems that I couldn't before is my thinking methods. That's predominantly how we can quickly see problems. The other thing that's related here is that my library of criticism is growing, and that also allows me to better judge ideas more quickly. And as that grows, my ideas will improve as well, and my ability to judge ideas will improve, my self-judgment will improve, things like that. And this is a qualitative distinction between before and after. Before, 6 months ago, I lacked many of the skills that I now have an appreciation for and have some understanding of, some ability to practice. There are going to be naturally some exceptions. Most of these exceptions are going to come from Q4 2020. The philosophy work that I was doing through the last 6 months of 2020, the first quarter of that, there were a lot more issues. So most of the good stuff that I've done has been in Q4 2020 or this year. My microblog on Curie.us, Curie.us/2380, most of that I endorse still. In fact, I think that was in September that thread was started, so that's Q4 anyway, basically. I guess finally, the reason that I'm doing, what this is about is me taking philosophy seriously, taking my ideas seriously, taking the responsibility of being a philosopher seriously, and ultimately, I guess this video is in essence my declaration of that and my commitment to it. And I feel compelled to make this, and I think that it's important that I make it first before I publish other things, so that, particularly video content, so that there is a easy to find line in the sand between before and after. So yeah, thanks.